Hello, everyone, and welcome to IHA's Webinar Wednesdays. I'm Debbie Teschke, the Senior Manager of Public Relations and Communications at the International Housewares Association. Today, I am joined by a group from the Virtual Press Office and Cision PR Newswire to present How to Get Earned Media, using your international home and houseware show presence to earn media attention. IHA has partnered with VPO Cision PR Newswire for 5 years to provide show exhibitors with an online press room. You'll hear more about that when we begin our Marketing Kit webinars in a couple of weeks. VPO Cision PR Newswire is a leading global provider of earned media software and services to public relations and marketing communications professionals. Cision software allows users to identify key influencers, craft and distribute strategic content, and measure meaningful impact. And now I'll turn the program over to our friends from VPO Cision.
Thanks, Debbie. And thank you everyone for joining us. Happy Halloween. We are celebrating a trick-or-treat in the office, so if you do hear a bang or clash or laughing or something, that could be why. My name is Trina Louie, and I am a Senior Customer Content Specialist for Virtual Press Office, Cision PR Newswire's Trade Show Division. I've been with Cision for 9 years, helping clients perfect their event marketing strategy. Before my time at Cision, I also worked at a local newspaper and local TV stations in the Cleveland and Toledo area. Since I worked in newsrooms, I'm very familiar on what journalists want and how they generate ideas. Also joining me today is my colleague, Ariane Muldoon. She's been with Cision for 6 years, counseling clients on event-related content. We've also both attended and exhibited at numerous trade shows. Cision as a company has been around under various company names since 1867, but has evolved and acquired numerous companies over time. Now is a very exciting time since Cision has acquired all the necessary tools and implemented a way that companies can measure the business impact and trace monetary value back to their earned media campaigns, something that the PR communications industry has been struggling with for decades. So today we are going to go over everything about earned media, what it is, how it fits into marketing, how to create audience-centric content, ways to get earned media, and finally, how to pitch the media. These are strategies you can specifically use for the home and houseware show or all year round. So let's get started. So, what is earned media? Earned media is any media activity related to a company or brand that is not directly generated by the company or its agents, but rather other entities such as customers or journalists. Earned media includes publicity gained through word of mouth, social sharing, reviews, news coverage, blogs, and various other promotional efforts other than paid media advertising or owned media. For example, every year Starbucks unveils their new holiday cups in November, and every year hundreds of articles come out about it, and thousands of people take to Twitter to share their thoughts. Some are good, some are bad, but Starbucks almost always gets a big boost of attention that time of year, which is what most companies dream of. It all starts with an announcement originating from Starbucks. Then articles about the holiday cup are featured on Forbes, Business Insider, Glamour, and multiple other publications that have a variety of audiences. Consumers also take to Twitter to provide their thoughts on the subject. Thousands of tweets and Instagram posts come out around the cup. Some tweets are good, some are bad, and some are wondering why so many people care about a cup. So you might be thinking, why is earned media so important? How do these articles and mentions translate into what companies really care about? Sales. This particular Starbucks example isn't really meant to drive sales in a direct, obvious way. They don't have a direct call to action like visit our website, buy gift cards, or visit one of our locations. But instead, it creates brand awareness and social proof. In Jonah Berger's book, Contagious, he mentions some tactics that make content go viral, increasing sales. Social proof is the concept of when people see others using your product, they will want to as well. This type of campaign could drive sales in an indirect way because people might go to Starbucks to check out the cup themselves in person since they want to see others with the cup. Jonah also talks about a trigger campaign, which is a sight, a sound, or anything that reminds you about a product. In the Starbucks example, the cup announcement can act like a trigger. Someone might think, oh, that means their holiday drinks are here too. I want a caramel brulee latte. That just happens to be my favorite drink. They also use these holiday cup campaigns to demonstrate the company's values, which some research is showing is important for younger generations and influences their purchasing decisions. So we see how Starbucks can benefit from their controversial cup campaigns, but there's other reasons earned media is important as well. Since 2004, Google Trends shows that searches for earned media are on the rise by more than 50%, which means more and more businesses are recognizing its importance. Earned media is also more trustworthy. According to an Outsell Research independent study, audiences view earned media as the most authentic form of marketing. Up to 81% of marketers rate earned media as more effective or as effective as paid media like TV, radio, and social ads. Also, when creating personas for your content strategy, many personas include what type of publications your ideal persona reads. If your personas are reading certain publications, shouldn't you have a goal to be featured in those publications and get in front of them in a new way? So we know what earned media is and why it's important, but how does it fit into a larger marketing strategy? Earned media is only one part of a multi-channel strategy. Having a multi-channel approach, which is a mix of owned media, paid ads, and earned media, is the only way to ensure your content or product gets seen by as many people as possible. There are benefits to each channel. However, only using one severely limits your discoverability of your brand and could mean you're missing out on a whole pool of potential sales. Your customers' usage of media varies because of numerous factors such as age, professional background, education, and place and time. This means that your information can reach your target groups in totally different ways. For example, a businessman may read emails or tweets on his iPad in bed before starting the day. Then he might read the newspaper in the morning and use his smartphone on his commute. A younger millennial may view social media in the morning and throughout the day, get their news from an app on their phone on lunch, and watch streaming TV later in the evening. This is why your content needs to be everywhere they are, which is a really large task. So to show exactly how large of a task this is, we're going to explore a study that shows how much content is generated every minute, which is why a multi-channel approach in today's world is a necessity. According to a 2018 report, Data Never Sleeps by Domo, every minute, 473,000 tweets are sent on Twitter, and Instagram users post 49,000 photos. So if you're using social alone, that's a lot of competition for your content to get lost in. In the retail sector alone, 694,000 emails are sent via MailChimp every minute, and BuzzFeed logs 208,000 content views. And every minute, Google conducts over 3.87 million searches. So even the best SEO experts might have trouble getting their websites to consistently appear in top search results with new content being created and searched every single day. Paid ads and earned media can help increase the places your product is seen in search results, on social, and in news publications. A mix of all three channels is the only way to get the visibility desired in this content-heavy environment. So now we know a multi-channel approach is essential for most marketing and sales success. However, most feel that earned media just kind of happens. And it can, but there are also ways you can drive it, which we'll explore later. Earned media is always, if not almost always, involved in purchasing decisions as well. So spending more time and resources fueling earned media is really important. So here's how earned media fits in a few typical customer journeys. So in this example, a consumer might see an article or recommendation for your product, and it might pique their curiosity. Then they might go to your website to find out more, maybe view your products, your blog. And then they might turn to Google and friends and to review and look at reviews to research and see if they trust your product. Then they might go back to your website to buy the product or to see where to buy it. Then the consumer might love the product, turn to social media, and become an advocate, which then starts the process all over again. So in this example, here's how it would start with paid. So a consumer might see a Facebook ad. Then they might go click on the ad, which would go to the website where they can find out more. Then they would, the consumer would turn to Google, friends, and read reviews to research the product. Then they would go back to the website to buy the product or again find where to buy. And again, if the consumer loves the product, they'll turn to social media or write a blog to be an advocate. And then those people that see that would turn around and go back to the website and start the process all over again. And this is a third example. So this is something that would start with an owned media approach. So perhaps a company puts out a press release, which a consumer sees, like the Starbucks example. So the consumer might see the website and the release, then find out more and see where to buy. Then they might turn to Google, friends, read reviews, and to research and see if they trust. Then the consumer might go back to the website to make the purchase. And then finally, the consumer would hopefully love the product, turn to social to be an advocate, and the process would go back to your website. So as you can see, 2 of the 3 journeys I just went over didn't involve paid ads, but all 3 involved earned media. Customers always, or almost always, turn to articles, reviews, and friends to confirm if they should buy a product, especially if it's a big purchase. As mentioned previously, audiences view earned media as the most authentic form of marketing. Consumers don't just blindly trust company websites anymore. They have to learn from outside sources that a product or service is worth their hard-earned dollars. So to further demonstrate how earned media fits in, here's a real-life example of how earned media can play into a customer journey. In this example, KitchenAid sends a multi-channel release, which is a customizable landing page for a news release that also gets distributed over a wire service to thousands of websites and media points. The press release got picked up by Digital Trends, and they featured a KitchenAid product in an article on Digital Trends' website, which has 24 million plus unique monthly users. The article on Digital Trends features an exact quote and the image from the original press release. So this ensures brand consistency, and it shows that journalists do prefer working from press releases since they are trustworthy and easy to pull from. Now a potential consumer could see this article, and maybe they want to learn more and get sent down the marketing funnel, going to the website, reading reviews, etc. This consumer may eventually make that purchase, love it, and recommend it to friends, all from one article mention. This was one example of how a company used a content-centric approach to get earned media to drive discoverability and awareness. Now I'll turn it over to Ariane to go over the benefits of a content-centric approach and specific actions that you can take to drive earned media for your company.
Thank you, Trina. So we're going to kick off this half of the presentation by diving into the components of a content strategy, which helps support earned media. Okay, so we know that earned media is, by definition, created by sources other than the company itself. So can company-generated content really result in earned media? The answer, of course, is yes. However, there's usually a difference between the types of content that marketing teams are used to pumping out and the types of content that audiences actually want. So that's why it's critical to evaluate your content strategy and ensure that it's being looked at through an audience lens. It's tempting to devote resources to things like, case studies and white papers that can be touted on your website and used by the sales team, but those things aren't necessarily going to excite a journalist or the end consumer. Paid advertisements, of course, have their place, but as they've evolved, so have we. We're really good at spotting any type of ad. Once we do, we immediately either tune out or become skeptical. Ads just come across as sort of, buy me now, and that's not really reflective of the journey that modern consumers are taking. So instead, try creating a content piece that truly speaks to your audience by solving their problems or appealing to their needs and desires. Put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, would I pay attention to this? Would I care? Would I want to share this? The point here is that earned media starts with great content. When you put out great content from the start, you also get the benefits of credibility, control, and creativity. Credibility is not only critical to attracting and retaining customers, but it's also a huge competitive advantage. When you consistently put out accurate, helpful information to the right audiences, you encourage both journalists and consumers alike to personally vouch for you, creating that coveted third-party trust. Now, the idea of control might seem counterintuitive in the earned media space. After all, you ultimately want other people to tell your story. The whole point is for voices other than your own to shine. However, that doesn't mean you can't help shape the narrative or be part of the conversation. So think about the weather. We can't control it, but we can use tools to help anticipate, prepare for, and endure it. We know how to take advantage of those gorgeous days and how to withstand storms. So if you're not creating content for your audience and not engaging with them, you're essentially leaving them stranded. Without your guidance, people will be left to their own devices, speculating, using unreliable information, and creating their own stories based off of that. Not good. So earned media's foundation is a symbiotic relationship between a brand and various audience groups. Because of this, it naturally lends itself to collaboration and creativity. Making content for your audience forces you to think outside of the box and gives you a great opportunity to show off the human side of your brand. Tapping into emotional content, for example, is a really easy way to make something memorable. If you work with influencers, the content that they may be creating on your behalf will most likely be a little different than what you're used to creating yourself as well. So we know that content is a very broad term, even though we use it a lot. So what are we actually talking about when we use that term? Are there certain kinds of content that we're thinking of more than others? Hopefully, this slide will help answer some of those questions. So here are a few examples of types of content that you can try using in your earned media strategy. Now, you don't have to do all of them at once, but I would encourage you to try one that you haven't before or one that you've immediately written off. So if you looked at this slide and instantly crossed off videos in your head for whatever reason, I would challenge you to think about why you did that and how you could overcome obstacles that you thought were insurmountable. So let's go over a few of these in more detail. Press releases may seem like relics of the past to you, but they are consistently reliable sources of information, and your communications plan probably already includes them in one form or another. Infographics lend themselves to sharing. They're a fun, efficient way to get across a lot of information to your audience, and they're super easy to chop up and repurpose. Journalists and consumers love them too. Videos are really important as well. So when someone is watching a video, they're having an engaged experience that keeps them captivated much longer than just text. This medium enables you to easily evoke emotion or easily showcase a complicated service. Studies and other original research may not seem like they would excite your audience, but data is very enticing to journalists in particular. They can easily turn your numbers and analysis into a story that your end consumer will find fascinating, even if the raw data wouldn't have appealed to them. Interactive content is a really neat way to take complex or abstract information and make it captivating. If you can personalize it, that's even better. So, who doesn't enjoy taking quizzes about themselves or playing around with an interactive website? I spend most of my time at home doing that. So finally, blog posts give you a good medium to convey thought leadership, show off the human side of your brand, and spotlight any corporate social responsibility endeavors that the company may be involved in. So by no means is this an exhaustive list of the kind of content you can create, but it'll hopefully get you brainstorming about new things to try with your audience in mind. So we mentioned press releases on the last slide, but I want to take a closer look at them to explore some misconceptions about them and how you can actually use them in your earned media efforts. All right, so even though I just mentioned that press releases are reliable pillars of most communication strategies, you might still be staring at this slide thinking to yourself, I don't know. I've seen articles where journalists say they've literally never used a press release for a story idea. I'm here to tell you that yes, that is true. You are correct. A lot of journalists don't find their story ideas from sifting through press releases. Some do, but the majority don't. So is the graph that we have here totally bogus? No, let me explain. So journalists might not use press releases for story ideas, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a journalist that never reads them. So if they don't use them for ideas, then why are they bothering, to take the time to read them? It's because press releases are accurate, newsworthy, and trustworthy sources of brand information. When considering several channels of company communications, from a spokesperson to the website to social media, journalists rank the press release as the most trustworthy. Press releases also top their list of most requested content. Yes, they want studies and images and videos too, all that good stuff, but they want to be able to source clean corporate announcements for quotes and context. So yes, journalists actually like press releases. They expect you to send them press releases and personalized pitches, or for them to be available when they're researching your company. Sending a press release out is a huge help in your overall communications plan, but it's not going to do the whole job for you. Now, just because journalists want press releases, that doesn't mean they want all of them. So fortunately, there are some easy ways to make your press release more effective, either by getting better at the great things you're already doing or by tweaking your approach. So the biggest part of a press release is going to be that newsworthy hook. Sometimes it can be tempting to write a vague headline about a new product launch or start the release body with the story of your company. But you actually want to do the opposite. You want to clearly state the news upfront in the headline and quickly expand upon it in the first line and paragraph. If you wait until the second or third paragraph to get to the news, you've already lost most of your readers. And if you're writing a headline that you hope will, trick your readers into clicking on it, please scratch that out and start over, because no one likes clickbait. The press release itself should also be written in natural language and avoid buzzwords. While most brands have style guidelines and set keywords that they like to include in all of their communications, try to keep the jargon to a minimum. When you're in a certain industry and you're reading similar publications over and over, you know that the language can get stale sometimes. Your audience feels the same way. Freshen up your language and make things easy to understand, and people will pay attention that much more. All press releases should incorporate at least one quote as well, if at all possible. So think about the kinds of articles and stories that you read. Most of them probably have quotes. Yes, a journalist can reach out to you for quotes, and even if you provide some, they might contact you for different ones. But providing at least one up front makes their job a lot easier and gives your story some extra pizzazz. Finally, journalists want more multimedia like images and videos. Some publications actually don't run original stories without at least one multimedia element. So even if you don't want to embed a photo or a video within the release itself, including a link to more assets or just indicating that multimedia is available would be perfect. We'd recommend going with a link because it gives the journalist options to work with right away. So there are a lot of things to keep in mind when putting together a news release. We know what journalists want from them, but here are a few more tips to help craft a successful announcement. So we've established that the news angle is important, but this is where a lot of brands can get stuck. Some aren't sure if they have news at all. Others have so many announcements that they don't know where to start, and a few might be stuck somewhere in between or pick the wrong angle. Think about what overall story you're trying to tell. If you don't have any new products, or you're going to an event like the Housewares show but want something else to say, consider commenting on trends or other timely occurrences. So for example, during hurricane season, we see a lot of press releases offering actionable tips and advice for how to prepare for a storm and what to do if you're impacted. Next is the call to action, which is actually missing from more press releases than you might guess. A call to action is just something like a link that guides your reader to what you want them to do next. Good examples of this would be a link to register for something, or sign up for a newsletter, or go to a specific e-commerce page. So then we have supplemental information. It's easy for press releases to become, dry, boring, long walls of text. But incorporating those supporting details like quotes, other links, and multimedia assets are really easy ways to liven them up and make them that much more useful to journalists. You also want to pay attention to formatting, because a lot of people don't. Taking a few extra minutes to break things up with bold section headers or a bulleted list can do wonders for the readability of a release. Remember, most people skim releases, so try to help the major points stand out for them. Finally, don't forget what can seem like small details. If you're exhibiting at a show like IHHS, there's no reason not to include your booth number. Always be sure to include personal contact information as well. So now that you have great content, where do you go from here? We'll look at a few different ways to share your content and establish a brand presence to connect with your audience and hopefully get some earned media along the way. Okay, so we know that your audience wants good content and that press releases are a big part of an earned media strategy. But what else can you do? There's no magic button to instantly give you coverage, but there are a few tactics that can certainly help encourage it. So the most important thing to remember is that all of this starts with stellar content worth sharing and then branches out from there. So one way to encourage earned media is through social media. But I'm not talking about, paid ads on Twitter or Facebook. That would not count. Social media gives you a unique opportunity to engage and connect with your audience, so take advantage of it. People absolutely love when brands either like, respond to, or otherwise engage with their posts. As an example, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Wendy's on Twitter. If you're not, you should go look it up because it's hilarious. So they do a great job of spotlighting and roasting their fans, and they always get a lot of earned media from it. Influencer partnerships provide an authentic avenue to reach your audiences as well. Look into teaming up with an industry blogger or YouTube star to reach new people and get them chatting around unique content. As we went over earlier, press releases are great earned media tools. You can get broad exposure with them through a wire service and keep them on your website in a news archive. They also do really great work in personalized pitches. So the type of editorial coverage that comes to mind when you think of earned media often starts with a solid pitch. We'll be going over pitching in depth in just a few minutes. Blogging gives you the opportunity to showcase thought leadership and other content marketing that you wouldn't necessarily find in a press release. But that doesn't mean it's not worth covering by journalists. The blogging format is naturally more informal and audience-centric, so give them content that's worth talking about. Finally, don't underestimate industry events like the Housewares show. Sometimes the tendency is to view events as, entirely separate from a brand's overall communication strategy, and many times the event team is siloed off from other parts of the business. We know it's easy to have industry blinders on and assume that, the only people who care about your brand at a show are the attendees, but that's really not true. Events are naturally newsworthy, and they offer a great springboard for your brand and your content, so take advantage of them in any way that you can. Fortunately, the Housewares show is a great one to tie your brand to, and the association offers a ton of resources that we'll go into next. So the International Home and Housewares Show consistently gets good media coverage, both in local Chicago outlets as well as outlets with both national and international reach. People are going to pay attention to the show. So anytime you talk about it in a press release or on social media, you're giving your communications that much more discoverability. IHA also gives you a lot of great resources to use in your overall paid, owned, and earned strategy. So I wanted to highlight a few of those here. Educational webinars like this one help you get the most out of your show experience. Many of them give you information and tips that you can use all year round too. You also have the opportunity to create show-centric online press kits through our partnership with the show. As a show participant, you also get access to the buyer and media list, which is great. You can use those for follow-up and pitching. There's also a marketing kit on the website that has links to additional tools and opportunities that you may be interested in, so I would recommend checking that out as well. Okay, so now we'll get into the section that is all about pitching. All right, so let's start with how to find people to pitch. It can be tempting to take shortcuts during this process because it is time-consuming, but putting in extra time is definitely worth the investment. The good news is that you don't have to be alone in the pitching process. There are a lot of great resources out there to help you. So when you're looking for someone to pitch, an easy place to start is the media list provided to you by the show, as well as any house list that you may already have. You know these contacts have been vetted and are high quality, so it usually doesn't take too much wrestling to, segment them down further and then find some individuals that fit the niche that you're after. To expand outside of your normal circles, you can consider some services like Help a Reporter Out or ProfNet. If you or your client want to be a source or expert for a story topic, you can sign up and then receive relevant inquiries from the media. Some services also include the ability for you to send out pitches via that platform. Pay attention to the general earned media landscape for your industry too, like reporters that cover competitors. If you want to be a little more proactive, researching a database might be for you. Now, this is definitely not to be confused with those spammy emails that you probably get sometimes asking if you want to buy an industry list. Those are pretty much never legitimate, so don't do that. With a professional database service, however, you can access reliable, up-to-date, and can easily search for journalists and influencers that fit your topic and industry. Some of them even include pitching profiles with quick links to the person's social media, a bio, what outlets they work for, and full contact details. Social media is another place that we recommend using for your research. So we don't suggest sending your actual pitch over Twitter, unless, of course, that journalist specifically takes requests like that. But it's perfectly fine to use social media for research. So you'll want to delve into hashtags or follow along with event-related conversations, and you might be surprised to find new influencers to interact with. We read a lot of event-related tweets, of course, and I've seen both on-site and remote reporters asking for information or looking for specific types of companies to go meet with. It can be hit or miss for sure, but I definitely wouldn't overlook social media. You can also do, good old-fashioned Googling. It might take more digging and time, but it still gets the job done. The takeaway here is that there are many pitching tools at your disposal. So when getting ready to actually send your pitch, there are a few best practices to keep in mind. First one is do not spam. Think about the kinds of unsolicited calls and emails that you get, both at work and at home. It's really easy to tell a salesy or spammy email from a legitimate one, right? Journalists can spot a mass email or an irrelevant pitch a mile away, so just don't do it. Also, you definitely want to avoid being generic. You want to tailor your pitch to both the outlet and the individual that you're contacting. Being super vague and not including any specifics makes it tempting to hit delete. When you're applying for a job, you should, tweak your resume for that particular position and research the hiring manager for your cover letter too. It's the same exact principle here. Consider including multimedia. So while we don't suggest adding attachments to your email because that just increases the likelihood of it ending up in the junk folder or not being received at all, we do recommend including some indication that photos and videos are available. You can do this with a link to a press kit or a Dropbox, or just let them know that you have this stuff ready. Many journalists need a visual element in their original stories, and they'll dig for one if need be, but offering it up front just makes their job so much easier. You'll also want to consider editorial cycles and other events. If the person you're pitching always does a big annual feature or writes about certain topics at certain times of the year, keep that in mind. If you don't know, put in a little more research to find out. So you'll definitely want to do your homework and properly prepare for the pitch. I cannot emphasize this enough. Research the outlet thoroughly to determine what kinds of things they focus on, and read the individual journalist's last 3 to 5 stories at least to get a feel for their work and make sure that your content is a good fit. Finally, be conversational and concise. You don't want to be overly personal, but simply speaking as a human to another human goes a long way. Buzzwords and jargon are a huge turnoff, especially to journalists, so just focus on thoughtfully articulating your pitch in a succinct way. So I just gave you some general best practices for pitching, but don't take it from me. The information that you see here is from Cision's State of the Media report and highlights what journalists want from you. The number one thing they ask for, you to research and understand their outlets. If you look at this list of top 5 requests, all of them relate back to helping the journalists to do their job quicker and easier. They want to work with you and they expect you to be an asset, so keep that in mind when pitching. Finally, I wanted to go over an example of a pitch. So there really is no perfect pitch, but there are helpful guidelines and templates that you can find online. So the screenshot here is an example that I took from the first link down in the resources section. So this is the type of pitch that that person would like to receive. Looking over it quickly, however, are there any edits that you would make, or is there anything in particular that jumps out at you? Try and read it from the perspective of a journalist rather than a pitcher. When I look at this, I like that the person is upfront about who they are and what their news is. They include specifics, provide multimedia, and they differentiate themselves from competitors. They also add a timely factor by mentioning the launch is next week. However, they don't demonstrate a knowledge of the journalist's previous work or familiarity with the publication, and there's no mention of how the product would benefit the readers. Even though there's a video link included, there were images attached, which we wouldn't recommend. Lastly, there's a line about first refusal. So I'd personally be judicious with any potential exclusivity or first refusal offers. While no one wants to write a story that's already been written, you can get into dicey territory with the rules of media exclusives in particular. First refusal also signals that you may have contacted other publications that turned you down and that you just want coverage. It sort of just takes away from the personalization of the pitch. Remember, each journalist is going to have individual quirks and preferences, but the basics are fairly uniform across the board. I've included a few links at the bottom here to some other helpful pitching resources from a variety of sites. So if you haven't done much pitching before or want to reevaluate your strategy, these are good places to start. Okay, so here we've compiled another list of popular resources for your reference. So the first link will take you directly to the online press office that we run for the show. You can also access this site through IHH's website via the second link there. We've also got some handy links to informative videos and blog posts that go into more detail on a few topics that we mentioned today. So we hope that you find these useful. So we want to thank everyone for spending part of your day with us, and we hope that you learned a thing or two along the way. IHA will be posting a recording of this webinar as well so that you can watch it at any time for any parts that you may have missed or share it with a colleague. If you have
Trina, we have a few questions for you.
All right.
Okay, the first question is, when should I start creating and sending out content related to the show?
Okay, so that's a good question. This is one that we get a lot. So this will depend on your event goals and what sort of content you're working with. Since, some formats just take longer to create and have longer lead times. But for a press release specifically, we recommend sending that out about 1 to 2 weeks prior to the show, especially if you're, looking to drive traffic to your booth. So 1 to 2 weeks before the show, that gives attendees enough time to add you to their agenda, but it's not so far out from the show that, no one is paying attention. Overall, though, I would say that earlier is better. The sooner you start creating your content, just that gives you more options to distribute and repurpose it.
Okay, perfect. Another question is, are embargoed press releases helpful to journalists?
So the short answer to that one is no. That's sort of an older tactic. So if you don't want your news seen or reported on until after a certain time, that's totally normal, but just don't release it in any way before then. So most journalists don't want to work with embargoes. If they see an announcement, they want to be able to write about it immediately. They've even been known to actually, flat out ignore embargo instructions. So our advice would be to wait to release your news until it's okay for everyone to know about and write about.
Okay, great. Another question is there a way to guarantee positive coverage?
So this is another one that we get all the time. I think that most companies wish that there was a way to guarantee positive coverage, but of course there's not. There's not even a way to guarantee any kind of earned media at all, let alone 100% positive coverage. The only thing you can do is just focus on an earned media strategy and be ready to help both journalists and your audience. So the better resource that you are for a journalist and the better your relationships are with them, the more likely it is that you will at least get fair coverage.
Okay. Well, that looks like all that we have at this time. And on behalf of IHA, I would like to thank everybody for attending. And most importantly, I would like to thank Trina and her team at Virtual Press Office. You guys are amazing. They're great partners of ours. And for those of you who would like to refer to this webinar, please go to www.housewares.org, and you most certainly can watch it again. Feel free to pass it on to any of your colleagues. And if you have any questions for IHA, my name is Ginny Costello. Feel free to reach out to us. We are always here. And once again, happy Halloween to everyone. And thanks again, Trina, for a great presentation. You guys are great. Have a good day, everyone.